Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe not for as many years as Senator Kim, but I too have the diversity of experience, having started in local government, a member of the Los Angeles City Council once upon a time, having served a couple terms in the California legislature before coming to the Senate. So I've seen the challenges of creating additional housing, whether it's the need for additional affordable housing, the housing affordability crisis, through multiple angles. And so, yes, our housing crisis is primarily a crisis of supply at this point. Haven't been intimately familiar with negotiating deals and seeing successful developments and those that were great visions but failed to come to fruition. It's because of oftentimes the bottlenecks or the bureaucracy and the well-intentioned measures to regulate housing production have also at times become a barrier to increasing the housing supply that a growing population needs. Typically, a developer must first secure a site before pursuing subsidies in the forms of grants or loans from multiple sources to amass the capital necessary before then applying for tax credits, if that's what it takes to get a project to pencil. Clearly, that can take a long time, often years and years and years. This has essentially also shut out small-scale developers who lack the financial resources or expertise to navigate government bureaucracy, and has increasingly driven builders to turn to the private sector for capital to fund permanent and affordable housing units. But most of us agree housing is a human right, and private investment alone cannot be the solution to the housing crisis. We must provide additional funding to improve the efficiency of the traditional affordable housing development process in order to increase the pace of housing production to keep up with the need that's clearly out there. Question for both Ms. Bailey and Ms. Ventura. How could we streamline federal programs so that developers can more easily navigate and maximize available public funds?
Thank you, Senator, for this question. First, what I think is critically important is to think about the HUD programs that have been put together to invest in capital resources. Those programs were developed independent of each other and not designed to be able to necessarily work together. So they're critically important, but they also haven't been reauthorized in quite some time. So looking at those programs collectively so that we can streamline them, make them easier to work together, and do exactly as you suggest, close those gaps, because in development, time is money.
Ms. Ventura, same question.
Thank you. I would certainly echo what Ms. Bailey had to say, Senator. I think that it's like a jigsaw puzzle when you try to put these transactions together. They are complicated and they're difficult, and very often we will provide technical assistance to help developers get through that process, but certainly agreeing that streamlining process on a federal level, aligning the programs better, would certainly help expedite the process.
Thank you. Look forward to working with both of you to pursue that, recognizing that, first of all, we need the input from the folks who practice this, the developing community, but also recognizing that what it takes to build in Los Angeles is going to be different than what it is to build in Bakersfield, California, which is going to be different than Texas versus New York versus Montana, et cetera. Want to make sure in my time remaining to touch on one other area, and that's homelessness and the lack of affordable housing are not new issues, but clearly unacceptable that more than 650,000 people, I'm talking veterans, families, young people, seniors, experience homelessness on any given night in the United States each and every year. And even more Americans experience housing insecurity. So they may not be experiencing homelessness yet, but one small stroke of bad luck, and they may very well find themselves in that situation, which is why I was proud to introduce my Housing for All Act, which would strategically surge federal investments in existing programs to reduce housing insecurity and increase funding for innovative, locally developed solutions. As Senator Kane said, if we have successful programs, don't need additional programs to compete with them. Let's just amplify, let's scale up. And homelessness is not just an urban or just a rural issue. It's not just a red state or just a blue state issue. It affects all states, all counties, all communities. Ms. Bailey, what innovative solutions could the federal government invest in to keep more people housed and prevent more Americans from falling into homelessness?
So the pandemic actually showed us the way in this space. With the Emergency Housing Voucher Program, HUD was given additional flexibility to alter how the voucher program worked and gave housing authorities additional resources to provide the services and be able to lease up a population that we generally consider among the hardest to serve, folks who have been experiencing homelessness. And housing authorities were able to do that in record time. This has been one of the more successful programs we've had in being able to take a resource from Congress and house folks quickly. The other thing I would say is experimentation in how to streamline the voucher program would be really critical. And one idea is to provide direct rental assistance to tenants. Right now, rental assistance goes to the landlord. If we could provide rental assistance that looks more like cash from the landlord's perspective, it could get rid of some of the source of income discrimination and streamline the process so that renters would be able to use the dollars more flexibly.
Right. My time is up, but I just call my colleagues' attention to not just helping address housing affordability in the short term, but you can appreciate the ripple effects in terms of greater economic benefit for local communities, for the state, and for the nation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next up, Senator Braun.